Finally, I finished the video, and are you kidding? Okay, what are you guys doing here? If you want to make a request, you have to talk to my secretary. Do I really have to? Okay, fine. Let's get this video over with. If you couldn't tell, in this video, I'm going to focus more on the spin-off shows that this franchise has to offer. These spin-offs are The Woman Called Fujiko Mine, Inspector Zenigata, and Lupin Zero. However, there will be some differences between this video and the parts 1 through 6 review. For starters, since only one show from this video currently has a dub, at least by the time I'm writing this video, there will be no bonus section that deals with the sub and dub versions of these shows. Despite this, there will be a small bonus section right after the Lupin Zero segment about a somewhat unofficial piece of Lupin the Third media. The last thing to note is that a majority of the shows mentioned in this video, excluding the one from the bonus section, has some sort of serialized story, so if you don't want to get spoiled and just want to hear my overall thoughts on them, go to either of these 3 timestamps. With that out of the way, on to the reviews! Prequels. Whether you like them or not, prequels have been a huge part in certain franchises, and Lupin is no different. Like, just look at the first theatrically released movie this franchise has. Not only that, but there are a couple of episodes and movies that try to act like the origin story for the Lupin gang. Despite this, they still have many parts of its story that don't really align to future installments, let alone part 1 in the manga. Whether that be through characters getting to know each other before a certain event that occurs in future installments, or plot devices that are barely even brought up in the future. But out of all these prequels, one stands out from the rest when it comes to its continuity and its uniqueness from the rest of the franchise, and that was The Woman Called Fujiko Mine. The Woman Called Fujiko Mine is a 13-episode series that, of course, primarily focuses on Fujiko Mine. One thing you may notice is that this is meant for a slightly older audience compared to the average audience group watching a majority of what this franchise has to offer. Now, to any brand new fans, it seems like the show is trying too hard to be edgy and is only making it edgy to gain more attention. But for those who are familiar with this franchise, you will know how this franchise definitely did not have a family-friendly start to it. This is the first show in this franchise to have a serialized story, so what exactly is the story about? Let's see how it is in the first episode. Episode 1 starts off on a small island where Fujiko disguises herself as a cult leader's bride for a cult known as Fräulein Eile. The cult leader uses a perfume of some kind that makes everyone in a trance state. Meanwhile, Lupin is after the potion and in the process meets Fujiko. The cult leader then finds out that Fujiko has no interest in marrying him and wants the potion, so not only he orders the execution of Fujiko, but also Lupin too. Of course, Fujiko and Lupin escape the island as Zenigata comes into the picture. The next few episodes not only introduce the other members of the main cast, but introduce new characters that would impact the plot. One of these characters is Zenigata's assistant named Oscar, who would have as major of a role in the story as much as the returning characters. More about him later in the video. After the first 3 episodes, in which we get introduced to some familiar faces, that's when the show starts to get into its footing. It puts the characters in the most interesting situations, whether it be through an opera house, a pyramid, a private school, or even Cuba during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Despite this, all this semi-serialized story comes to an end around episode 8. In this episode, we're introduced to a man named Shitoro, a man who can predict the deaths of people who are coincidentally had their treasures stolen by Lupin. Turns out, the guy doesn't have any psychedelic powers, and he was used by a man named Luis U. Almeida, who wanted to see if Lupin is a worthy fit for Fujiko. Meanwhile, Fujiko steals a lithograph called the World Tree, which supposedly has the days where people would die. Shitoro wanted the lithograph so that he could regain his ability to predict the future. All he has to do now is to predict the day when Fujiko dies. However, before he could tell her, he gets electrocuted, and with the occasion of rain, he burns up into flames. Just before that, Shitoro explains how he would fulfill the final job for Luis U. Almeida, who goes by Fräulein Eile. This is what will lead to Fujiko to slowly lose her mind. Episode 9 focuses on a young girl that tends to have a mural all around her body. Both Lupin and Jigen got interested in her and stole her. They realized how, in reality, she was treated way more like an art piece than an actual person, which can explain why she acts more like a toddler than a person of her own age. Fujiko shows up and tries to not only kill Lupin and Jigen, but also the girl. Lupin figures out that Fujiko wants to kill this girl because the girl reminds Fujiko of how she was taken advantage of as a child by being the equivalent of a lab rat. Lupin and Jigen escape with the girl, and not only they remove the pain off of her, but also put her in a place where she would have a better future. Episode 10 primarily follows Lupin for a majority of the episode. You see, an owl man, who is a servant of Luis Almeida, wakes Lupin up asking him to steal Fujiko. Lupin brushes the guy off, but the owl man insists. Lupin gets curious and goes to where the supposed Almeida is. Turns out, Almeida is part of a ghost town where there are many other people that are like the servant. Meanwhile, Zenigata and Oscar are also in the ghost town to investigate the making behind the drug used in the first episode. Once Lupin meets with Luis Almeida, Luis sprays Lupin with the drug and puts him in the town before a certain incident. This will lead to the episode not only acting like something out of a psychological thriller show, but also giving us more insight on what's going on in the story. You see, a man named Dr. Fritz Kaiser, along with the other scientists, made a drug which, although would make people feel happy for a while, weirdly turned people into owls, which would be shown through the countless human experiments done in the past and the results of the experiments now. Throughout Dr. Kaiser's interaction with Lupin, it's revealed that the reason why the town is technically considered a ghost town was because of a chemical spill that killed almost everybody. Now, despite Fujiko not really appearing in this episode, that does not mean that there is no new lore about her. You see, during the conversation between Dr. Kaiser and Lupin, Dr. Kaiser shows a picture of his daughter, who looks a little too similar to Fujiko. Meanwhile, Zenigata and Oscar keep on searching around the lab where the drug was made. Suddenly, Zenigata sees Lupin walking around the lab. Not only that, but there are countless illusions attacking Zenigata and Lupin. Lupin will then later find Dr. Kaiser, and as Dr. Kaiser talks about using his daughter for experiments, Lupin is slowly transported to the past. This is where we see Dr. Kaiser's daughter is celebrating her birthday and wants Lupin to chase her. More illusions ensue, and even when Lupin does catch the daughter, more illusions. It ends with not only Lupin waking up from it, but also Zenigata waking up from the drug and leaving the ghost town with Oscar. Although episode 11 is a mix of different storylines, it also focuses on Oscar, Zenigata's new assistant. This is shown through a flashback that is repeated primarily in the beginning and ending, with some variation, with how Zenigata took care of Oscar after saving Oscar's life from drowning in the river. Now, since Fujiko did not appear in episode 10, we get to see where she was the entire time, in that she was being taken care of by Goemon, but not to the eyes of Interpol. This is because Fujiko was stealing treasures from different museums despite the treasures being under high security. However, it turns out that it was Oscar who was stealing the treasures in response to his growing and obsessive passion for Zenigata. Meanwhile, when Fujiko discovers the news, she goes under a mental breakdown as she remembers her traumatic memories of her being experimented on. Going back to Interpol, with a revolutionary parade going on, Interpol is trying to figure out what Fujiko meant in her new calling card. Despite Oscar and everyone else at Interpol's belief, Zenigata believes that the incidents that have been occurring in the past few days were not of Fujiko. Later in the day, as the parade occurs, it's revealed that Oscar plans to destroy a bridge, which allows Oscar to quickly steal the revolutionary girl's dress. Despite it being planned out, Lupin discovers the bomb from the recent incident and attempts to defuse it. Not only that, but Goemon also attempts to prevent it from happening as he also heard about the recent incident. As this is going down, Oscar realizes how the bridge he was about to blow up is the same bridge where Zenigata saved his life. In a moment of desperation, Oscar sacrifices himself and jumps into the water, blowing himself up in the process. Or so we believe. What makes this episode especially unique is how the men that work for Luis Almeida are way more present throughout the entire episode, which slowly connects to the two-part finale. Both episode 12 and 13 follow the main five going to an abandoned area known as Glaucus Park, which is connected to not only the countless recent cases of girls getting kidnapped, but also to Fujiko's past. This is where we see Fujiko reach her breaking point, as she is constantly reminded of her childhood trauma. This is shown through a ride in the park called House of Fujiko. There, we see the troubling past of Fujiko presented through lifeless animatronics. During this, we learn through Jigen and Lupin's interaction that Almeida has been controlling everything that has been done throughout the entirety of the show, down to the people people she has encountered with. The main thing to note from the finale is how most of the characters that were relevant to the plot and that were presented throughout the majority of the show are mostly interacting with each other and in some cases concluding the storyline between certain characters. Either way, it was revealed that Fujiko's memories were of another girl named Aisha, the actual daughter of Dr. Kaiser, and Fujiko was just a maid in disguise that was subjected to the experiment to live a life Aisha wanted. In the end, everyone leaves the park as they part ways for whatever life has to offer. Overall, the woman called Fujiko Mine is a unique entry to the series as it reflects the more mature nature of the original manga through not only the art style but also through its storytelling. The plot for this show provides an interesting origin story to part 1 as it provides both a story of how the members of the Lupin gang met and how Fujiko can be perceived as a woman filled with mystery like in the Asumi episodes. Despite this, I might as well address the elephant in the room, which is the ending of the show. Sure, it at least cleared up why Fujiko is involved with the villains, but it can feel as if a well-crafted story that was built up was destroyed for a strange excuse. Despite this, it can be strangely viewed as a way to represent how no matter how much Fujiko is manipulated to the liking of people, she'll still be the femme fatale that we all know and love for the past few decades. Another thing to note about the story is that with its mature tone, there's bound to be imagery and dialogue that may make you uncomfortable when encountering them. If anything, to prepare yourself to watch this show, watch some of the installments of this franchise that is similar in tone what the show beholds, but even then you will still not be prepared for what goes down in the story. As for the characters, they all support the plot in a unique manner. With this show focusing on Fujiko, they pull out everything from Fujiko's personality and actually use it to expand her character instead of a plot device. Not only that, but with Fujiko having an actual backstory, at least for a majority of the show, it allows the audience to try and piece everything from previous episodes to figure out something that the franchise has been lightly poking at in the past. As for the other members of the Lupin gang, all of them reveal each aspect of Fujiko's personality, as well as how she views the world around her from her past experiences. As for Oscar, Zenigata's partner for the show, he has the characteristics of a character that is meant to be hated. From his stubbornness to his obsession with Zenigata, how much he interacts with Fujiko, it paints the image that Oscar is a mentally unstable man that is corrupted from his connection with the people around him, especially around Zenigata. With the villains, they provide a lingering yet powerful presence throughout the show, and when they are actually present, they can pose a genuine threat to our characters. For the animation and music, they stand out as it emphasizes the vintage yet modern feel that the show is presenting itself as. The animation, directed by Takeshi Koike, allows the characters to move in a semi-realistic way, similar to what one can envision when reading the manga. Same applies with the art style, which is a great combination between the original manga art style and the modern designs present in the anime counterpart. The music, composed by Shinichiro Watanabe, is a more classier version of Yuji Ono's usual soundtrack, which can be helpful to emphasize the strange nature that the show goes through, especially when it comes to the plot relevant scenes. Now before I wrap everything off, I might as well mention the dub for this series. Dubbed by Funimation, the cast consists of a mix of the Pioneer cast from the Part 2 dub and the Funimation cast from the dubs of certain TV specials. Sonny Strait, Christopher Sabat, Meg McFarlane, and Michelle Ruff reprise their respective roles, but Richard Epcar is a unique situation as he voices Inspector Zenigata rather than his usual role as Jigen. The cast, both our main characters and side characters, provide an excellent performance as they are able to perfectly capture the emotion the characters are experiencing throughout the show. Overall, despite its mature tone and somewhat messy ending, the show still holds up to be an amazing story that explores one of the most mysterious members of the Lupin gang, as well as it being an amazing prequel to Part 1. It's no wonder that a simple miniseries would end up not only allowing TMS to pave the way for more TV shows for this franchise in the future, but an entire timeline that spans through 5 movies as a way to continue what makes the show all the more special. 9 out of 10. I'm going to be brutally honest, I did not really like Zenigata at first. Sure, he is technically a part of the Lupin gang, and he does shine in certain episodes and movies, but there are times where he really just was the weakest part of the whole episode/movie. Especially when it comes to stuff like most Part 2 episodes, it feels as if he is there just for the comedy. So when watching movies and episodes such as Tokyo Crisis and Part 2 episode 69, I realized how Zenigata can be such a hardworking man that not only is willing to finish the job, but also put any criminal that is not part of the Lupin gang behind bars. Now take what I just said, put a nice mix of the tone often present in the modern installments of the anime, good storytelling, and a dash of live action to get the Inspector Zenigata show. Released between Part 4 and Part 5, the show was a collaboration between NTV, Hulu, and Wow Wow Channel, which means we have one pilot by NTV and 2 seasons that aired on both Hulu and Wow Wow Channel, known as the Crimson Case Files and the Jet Black Case Files. Each of these seasons consists of 4 episodes each, making it a 9-episode series if you are including the pilot. Speaking of the pilot, let's look over that pilot, shall we? What makes the pilot to the show unique compared to, let's say, the pilot film is its runtime. It's not 11 minutes nor 22 minutes, it is a 1 hour and 35-minute pilot that consists of 2 connecting storylines. Basically, a bomb dare was sent by Lupin to the Ueda Tower building, and the Division 1 of MPD came in to evacuate everyone in the building. Meanwhile, the museum that is next to that said building has one of its paintings stolen and a security guard's dead body. With Zenigata coming to the search as he believed that Lupin could never do such a thing, the superintendent hires 2 subordinates to accompany Zenigata, Sakuraba and Kurikira. More about them later. When they discover who was behind the robbery and the murder, Zenigata gets bombarded by multiple news crews. Zenigata then begins to ramble about how the police system is the best and they can put any criminal to justice. Soon enough, the police get into a game in which the police must answer riddles in a set amount of time before a bomb explodes on certain buildings. This is a surprisingly great start to the series, as it contains a great balance between the comedic and the more serious moments in the show. It also well establishes itself as a unique entry to the series, as we mainly focus on Zenigata and the new characters presented in the show, as well as little to no appearances of Lupin. It is only mentioned every once in a while. Speaking of the new characters, specifically with Sakuraba and Kurikira, they are both great subordinates that help build the storyline and Zenigata's character as a whole to someone unfamiliar with his antics. With the pilot, we also see their slow character development throughout the show, as they become either more accepting of who Zenigata is as an inspector, or become a better detective so that they can become more useful in the cases. Keep the pilot well in mind, as skipping the pilot will leave you in the dark about character interactions and the development they go through as they are present throughout both seasons. Now for the 2 seasons, the main difference between the 2 of them is the subordinates used in the season. If you are watching the first season, aka the Crimson Case Files, then the main subordinate that is going to be with Zenigata is Sakuraba, while Kurikira will be the main subordinate in season 2, aka the Jet Black Case Files. The main thing to notice about both of the seasons is that the story to the episodes are roughly similar to each other. That does not mean it is flat out bad per se, but once you notice it, it can be hard to ignore it. Let me give you an example. In almost every episode, it either starts with Zenigata and the subordinate of the season doing some activity or moments before the victim of the crime gets murdered. Either way, it leads to Zenigata and the subordinate discovering the case, and Zenigata wants to arrest the criminal. Despite the refusal from the superintendent due to Zenigata being in the international division, this leads to Zenigata and his subordinate to do some digging around the crime scene and to find out the criminal after a lot of trial and error. The criminal will then be in denial, but after a while, Zenigata puts them in handcuffs, and that will be the episode. Of course, there are variations between each episode that makes them slightly unique from the rest, whether it will be through the scenery, lack of the subordinate for a majority of the episode, or the situation at hand. Another thing to notice from the 2 seasons is how they use certain aspects of Zenigata's character that were established in certain episodes/TV specials throughout the franchise and expand on it in 2 different ways. A personal favorite example of this would be in episode 4 of the Crimson Case Files and the 2-parter episode present in the Jet Black Case Files. In these episodes, both explore Zenigata revisiting someone from his past, but the main difference is how that said person is used in the plot. In episode 4 of the Crimson Case Files, the person was a past lover of Zenigata, and when she was about to be murdered, Zenigata saved her from her demise. However, in the 2-parter episode in the Jet Black Case Files, a friend from Zenigata's past was murdered by the villain, and Zenigata wanted to solve the case to bring justice to his late friend. Both of these episodes are amazing on their own, and when looking through these episodes in that perspective, it greatly enhances on what makes Zenigata the way he is. Now, going into the giant elephant in the room, the fact that this is live action. It's understandable that one may feel cautious about watching it for that reason, as the franchise does not have a great track record of live action media when it comes to the 2 live action movies that already already released by the time of the show's release, which were Strange Psychokinetic Strategy and Lupin the Third 2014. Despite this, the show being in live action is a great choice as it helps add into how unique the show is with its story and character interpretation of Zenigata. Additionally, the show surprisingly does not get too cartoony, unlike something like Strange Psychokinetic Strategy, and instead grounds itself into reality with having its comedic moments every now and then. This is also true with the acting in the show, as Ryohei Suzuki does an amazing performance as Zenigata, with him balancing with Zenigata's hardworking dedication to his career and his peers, as well as the more lighthearted elements of his character. Another factor to add is how this, out of all the live-action media, had an impact on the future installments of the anime. This is especially true with how Yara and Kirikira, specifically in the Jet Black case files, act very similar to each other, as well as Zenigata having two subordinates in both the pilot of the Zenigata show and in season 2 of part 6, and that both second seasons of part 6 and the Zenigata show having a flower shop lady who is secretly a wanted killer. Overall, the Inspector Zenigata show is an amazing entry to the franchise, as it not only truly focuses on Zenigata rather than him and any other member of the Lupin gang, but also provides an interesting variety of supporting characters that help build into these stories. Despite it being required to watch the pilot to only understand certain character developments and interactions that impact on how they act throughout the episodes, and each season having their own unique take on the same storyline and or aspect of Zenigata's character, it is still possible to enjoy these episodes and to see how these characters are able to grow as the show goes on. 9 out of 10. Now you may be noticing a pattern so far with the tone from all of the shows I've been covering so far. The Woman Called Fujiko has a very similar tone to the manga and the Asumi episodes of part 1, while the Zenigata show has a similar tone to most modern anime installments in this franchise. However, we have to look at a show that is at the utter extreme end, where it has influences from the 8 production episodes of part 1 with a hint of manga influence to it, and that is Lupin Zero. By the time I'm writing this, Lupin Zero is the most recent show made for this franchise as a whole, as it was released in December 2022 and finished in January 2023. It also has the shortest amount of episodes as a whole, with only 6 episodes. Taking place in Tokyo in the 1960s, we follow a younger Lupin and his newfound friend Jigen as they go on adventures that will slowly develop into how Lupin and Jigen are in many of the installments of the franchise. Although this may seem like a simple episodic story, there's also a serialized story that goes on. You see, in the first episode, Lupin meets a nightclub singer named Yoko and slowly becomes friends with her. But little does he know, Yoko's not only in love with a man named Gaucho, a member of a rebellion group, but that same rebellion group is going to cause an atomic explosion to Tokyo. The show also focuses on Lupin's relationship with his family, specifically with his dad and his grandpa. Honestly, it adds a really nice touch as something that rarely gets discussed in the main series, as it demonstrates the tough love the family has with each other. This also applies to Jigen and Lupin in the show, as despite Jigen not initially enjoying Lupin's presence in every chance Lupin gets, he slowly enjoys Lupin as a person and as a thief, even if it means that they might be more than friends. Anyway, a main thing to know about the style of the show is the amount of references it makes to both the manga and part 1. 2 great examples of this would be through the soundtrack and the style of the story. With the soundtrack, many songs that were originally composed by Takeo Yamashita for part 1's soundtrack were brought back and were rearranged by Otomo Yoshihide. These new arrangements help bring a more modern flair to the original soundtrack while still keeping the unique early 70s style of music present in these songs. It also helps develop the setting of the series as being a prequel to part 1, and that the type of heist that Lupin goes through throughout the show may be something new to him in the moment, but will become nostalgic to him in the future. As for the style of the story, there tends to be references from both part 1 and the manga, to the point that episode 3 is mainly an adaptation of one of the chapters from the original manga. Speaking of something new yet nostalgic, let's look at young Lupin and Jigen again, but this time with their voice actors. For this show, Lupin and Jigen are voiced by Tasuku Hatanaka and Shinosuke Takeuchi respectively, and honestly, they both did a really good job with the characters. They both captured Yamada's and Kobayashi's performance in part 1, but with a unique twist as they captured the young and wild energy of the characters, as well as their slow developing experience with them being thieves and friends. Looking over the other characters, characters, all their VAs also provide amazing performances that help develop their characters. Even with the return of Toshio Furukawa from the Fuma Conspiracy cast, but this time as Lupin II, it helps give a great tribute to the long-lasting legacy that this franchise has. Now, before I end this segment, I might as well mention the fact that this show is 6 episodes long. On the surface, with that small amount of episodes, it sounds and is difficult to put an entire storyline that is short and effective enough to make the show good, let alone decent at best. Surprisingly enough, the show does an amazing job of handling these episodes in a way that the overall plot does not feel too rushed or forced, but rather it feels smooth, and although it does feel slow at times, it at least slowly builds up to the finale. Overall, Lupin Zero provides an interesting outlook into Lupin's origin story in a way that it can be enjoyable for both new and old fans of the franchise. From amazing character interactions to the references of Part 1, it helps give the show the identity of being a love letter to the show that began the entire franchise's career in the anime industry. Despite it having a small amount of episodes, it takes advantage of it to provide an amazing and well-paced story. Even if I do wish there were more episodes, it's best to remember this: it either dies as the Lupin Zero we have now, or lives long enough to become a former shell of itself. 9.5 out of 10. Well, this would be the point where I hand out the next video, make a little joke about it, insert the credits, and you guys move on with your day. But there is still one thing left from this video. Since I mentioned way earlier on in the video that there is a bonus section for it, I might as well do it. So here it is, folks, your bonus section for this video! Lupin Zero is a web parody that was animated by Frogman and released from December 19th, 2012 to February 20th, 2013. Now, what makes this parody unique is how it surprisingly got its own DVD, but has since gone out of print. The show has a total of 11 episodes if you count the pilot that was only released on DVD, with each of them being around 3 minutes long. Now, the thing is that this is no ordinary 2010s internet parody with edgy humor that is supposed to signify that it's made for an older audience. The parody aspect of the show is mostly inserting the characters into either overused tropes, genres of TV shows/movies, or flat-out parodies of shows. Despite this, the comedy of the show is more what I like to call unexpected equals funny. It takes a while to get used to the strange humor it has, but once you get used to it and understand the context behind these jokes, it makes the experience better. Especially since each episode is 3 minutes long, the jokes are slowly set it up into one wild journey for each episode. If anything, the extremely limited animation present in the show enhances the humor, as there is a mix of decently drawn characters next to flat-out models of the Lupin gang that move in a limited manner. Overall, Lupin Zero is a strange parody that has its own charm of having the Lupin gang go under the most unexpected of scenarios. Although the show is not really mandatory to watch given it's a parody, it's still interesting to view it as a product of many internet parodies that were made in the 2010s, as well as a parody made in Japan. 7 out of 10. Well, those were all the TV shows this franchise has to offer as of the making of this video. Sure, there will be more spin-offs and the inevitable Part 7 that will release in the near future, but my main point with both of these videos is to try these shows out. Obviously, not every show is for everybody, but each of these shows has a unique tone that makes it as if the franchise is meant for everyone. Whether you like something that is similar to the original source material, or lighthearted adventures that allows the audience to feel the excitement that the characters are feeling, there is practically a Lupin the Third TV show that is for you. You just need to find it. Until next time. Finally, I finished the video! Now let me see my video list for a sec. Well, if you excuse me, folks, I'm gonna take a nice and relaxing break.
Is that the Grim Reaper?